Hello, gamers. And a very happy March update to you. So, this week we got some pretty big things. We got the Arcasia Tour, which is the new Horizontal Express. It's a series of quests that you get to do to catch up with a bunch of skill points and runes and a bunch of things that you were probably too lazy to do before. Or maybe you're new and it's just an easier, faster way for you to catch up. Huge. Amazing. Then we got the new Power Pass, plus the Makoko Express, plus the Path event, Road of the Breaker, something of Darkness, the Express honing, a whole bunch of catch-up mechanics to help you get your main or your next alt geared up way faster than normal. We got some amazing UI changes. We got some amazing quality of life changes. This week was really big for Lost Ark. Now, I'm super happy with everything that we got, and I hope that you are too. But of course, we're here to talk about one thing, and that is everybody's new favorite alt, or maybe for some of you, it's even going to become your main. The brand new class that just came out called Breaker. Now, my plans for Breaker before the class came out, I watched guides, I read the guides, I kind of studied up on both builds. After I studied and learned what I could, I started leaning towards wanting to play one of them more than the other, but I promised myself and everybody else that I would at least try both builds. So on Wednesday, when the servers went live, I logged in, I sent over just enough level 10 gems that I could have 2 level 10 damage gems for both builds on my Breaker. So I set up both builds, skills, engravings, stats, everything. I set them both up properly. I leveled up tripods. I rolled the level 10 damage gems, and I ran some content. I tried my best to even it out and play half and half, like a little bit of this, a little bit of that for both builds. So in some Guardian raids, I did a Descaluda. I did Descaluda really early on. I did Hanus. I did Sonavel. Each of those Guardian raids I ran as both builds so I could test out how each build feels in the same scenario. Now, these Guardian raids were a ton of fun. Both builds I had a blast with. I had so much fun on Wednesday. But after playing each build, even just the first time, I almost immediately knew which one I wanted to play, and it was the one that I thought I was going to want to play before. But to try and stay unbiased as much as I could, I kept playing both builds. Now, I didn't go into Trixian. I didn't practice my rotation for either build. I just set it up and went straight into these Guardian raids. So my understanding of each rotation probably wasn't great, wasn't perfect, and from what I can gather early on, the Brawl King Storm version of Breaker has a very specific rotation that if you do really well, you will perform really well. Whereas if you screw it up, it gets a little tough to figure out how to get back to where you were. Whereas the Asura build, there is no real set rotation. There are skills that you prioritize. As long as you're bouncing back and forth between your shock skills and your stamina skills, so your green and your yellow, you're constantly generating meter before you get into your form where you're going to do your machine gun punches. So all of this being said, I think one is a little bit easier to wing it versus the other, but I think both builds are very simple to comprehend early on at their like lowest skill point. So first, let's talk about Brawl King Storm. This build is very fun. The numbers that I was seeing were way higher than I expected, and I wasn't even level 55 yet. Like, this is literally day one. Now, I did have level 10 gems, so the numbers are expected to be big, and it is a burst damage class, but it's still way bigger than what I expected to see. The rotation for getting into form felt pretty good as long as the boss isn't dodging your skills. I'm sure it's something that you could figure out along the way about how to make up for anything that you may have lost. But really early on and not practiced and not studied, I was lost if I missed skills. I just started slamming everything until my meters filled up and I was ready to burst. Whoa! So there's definitely room for improvement in this build. The one really nice thing about this is that all of your damage comes from 2 skills, and it's kind of hard to miss them from what I've experienced so far. One of the things I didn't like about this build was how slow it felt. I felt like I was trying to save my skills to generate meter instead of using my skills for mobility to close gaps. And again, I'm sure this is something that you could figure out a way around once you learn the class better. But really early on, I just couldn't decide if I was trying to hold my skills or use them to get back to the boss for uptime. All right, now let's talk about Asura. So early on, what I really do like about this build is that the mobility feels insane. you get rewarded for constantly spamming your skills, whether or not you're actually hitting the boss. And it feels like more than half of my skills can be used for mobility. One thing that I really like about this base skills is that the majority of the damage only comes from one of your 8 skills. So even though you're a front attacker, it feels like it's okay to just constantly be spamming skills, whether or not the boss is facing you, and you don't lose a ton of value, unless it's the skill that does the ton of damage. And then of course the identity and the punches, but we'll talk about that after. So as far as the 8 skills go, they all feel incredible. I only tried the build with the Nova skill. I think it's called Zafir Nova versus the other build that I think people are using for more stagger. From what I've noticed, the stagger on this class is more than fine without that skill. Now, aside from the base 8 skills, I love the fact that the Awakening instantly fills my meter and puts me straight back into form, where you get to go back straight back into doing huge bursts without having to worry about cooldowns or anything like that. You just go straight back in. And then, of course, there's the identity itself. So there's 2 parts to the identity in this build. The first part of the identity is the damage part, where you press your Z and you start punching like crazy. And as long as the boss doesn't move, even if the boss turns, the damage, it's still super satisfying, constantly be pumping out numbers, whether they're big or small. It just feels good. Obviously, you don't want the boss to turn and you want to hit the whole thing at the boss's face because you're a master brawler, you're a front attack class, but it feels good regardless of whether or not you're hitting the boss in the face. It obviously feels better if you are. Now, the second part of this is the fact that I have another button that I can press that is strictly just for defensive uses. I love this skill. Now, my first day using this skill, I barely ever used it. I kept forgetting about it. I was too focused on my skills and everything else. But after a few days playing, I'm in love with this button. It feels so satisfying to not have to worry about dodging every single attack and trying to figure out which ones you can just ignore by pressing this button. It's already saved my life more times than I can count. However, it has also killed me a number of times already, but we don't have to talk about that part. I'm tanking it? Okay, nope, no, I'm not.
Oh shit,
Okay.
oh shit, oh shit, oh shit.
Yeah, that hurts without DR. Okay, noted. Well, I'm limit testing, so you guys don't have to. The one thing I'm noticing about this build at first is that for new players who don't know the boss patterns very well, it's going to be kind of rough. Going into form and spamming those punches into the boss's face is such a huge majority of your damage.
Oh my
that
God,
if
please.
you are waiting for too long to try and find the right opportunity, or even worse,
so
you
bad.
don't wait at all and you just press it right away before the boss phases or goes invincible or just jumps away, is so punishing. I think the reason I'm having so much fun on this class right now is because I know all these fights really well. When Theomine comes out and I don't know it and my breaker is 1610, because my breaker will be 1610 for Theomine, I could very easily see myself having a really tough time. Okay, so with all this being said, the one question that everybody wants answered: which one is better? This is always a tough question to answer because I don't know how good the players are who are asking. You know what I mean? So I think the short answer is that they are both very good. But the long answer is that if you are an experienced player who knows the raids really well, I think we're going to see Asura performing better in a lot of those raids. However, if you're a less experienced player, maybe you're still learning the raids, or maybe even it's just one of those raids where the bosses never stop moving and Asura just doesn't get the opportunity to hit their full damage potential, I think that Brawl King Storm is going to perform really, really, really well when in the hands of new players, average players, inexperienced players, or again, just fights where the boss is completely unpredictable and never stops moving. All right, so let's talk about positioning. I don't know if I have a lot to say about Brawl King Storm. It's a Hitmaster class. As long as you're playing close to the boss and hitting your skills to generate your meter, I feel like the positioning isn't nearly as important as on Asura. Now, on Asura, there are a lot of fights where, believe it or not, the front of the boss is the most dangerous place. So what I will say about Asura in a lot of fights in this game is that if you don't use your defensive button, the X skill, and you don't plan around that cooldown, you're going to have a really tough time in a lot of fights. On day one, I took my breaker into a con, and I think I did pretty well. I top damage Cruel Fighter at every single gate, but it's not really saying much because I had a lot of other brand new characters, the Makoko Express characters in the raid as well. and I think none of which had level 10 gems like I did.
And I greeted a lot.
So my performance might strictly just be because I had some of the best synergies my class can have, and I was more geared than other players. Now, all that being said, I do think I played pretty well. I played kind of like a goblin because I really wanted to test the limits of the X. And again, this is why I say that if you plan the fight and if you plan your attacks around the cooldown of your defensive skill properly, then I think that's when you're really going to start to shine on this build. All right, so the last thing I'll talk about are what my plans are for this class now. After playing it for even just a couple days, I'm already in love with it. And now, of course, part of that can be because, you know, we get excited when new things come out. New shiny thing gets all my attention, super fun. But I really do think that this class has the ability to keep my attention for a long time. I think the fact that I can spam buttons during mechanics or during downtime in fights to generate my meter, I don't even have to hit anything, is amazing. As someone who plays a lot of really high APM classes, this playstyle with really short cooldowns is right up my alley. I love this. As someone who enjoys classes the most when they have really good mobility built into their kit, like my Lunar Reaper, like my Gunslinger, like Empress Arcana, like Soul Eater, all of these classes that I really, really love are the ones that are non-stop moving. Like half the buttons I press are moving my character. And then lastly, before Breaker came out, I decided to try out a new ult, and it was a Lone Knight Gun Lancer. And from the first day that I started playing that class, it was just so much fun to have a different playstyle than what I'm used to. Maybe not doing quite as much damage, but finding other ways to contribute to a raid with really good taunts or even just synergies or the extra shielding or cleanses or whatever it was. I've been having so much fun on my Gun Lancer. And so for me, Asura Breaker is this really cool combination of the front attack, slower, tankier, positional playstyle, while also adding in the mobility and the short cooldowns and all the other parts of the classes that I normally love to play. And then on top of that, it has insane burst damage. It's everything I've ever loved about the classes in Lost Ark, all packed into one. And so my plans for Breaker are to give him everything that we got. Every single part of every pass that we got with this update is going to my Breaker. I hope to push him into my top 4 and maybe even my top 3 as quickly as I can. I would love to get him into Theamine. Maybe not right on release, but pretty close to release. And then gear him up further, hopefully into Hard Voldus to get legendary elixirs. I will 100% be playing Asura Breaker in as much content as I can. It is some of the most fun I've had playing this game in a long time. Now, all that being said, I'm still playing around with Brawl King Storm. So I'm still testing it. I'm still trying to get it figured out a little bit more. Every time I swap to that build and do any bit of content on it this week, I'm blown away by the size of the numbers and the damage that I'm doing. It seems like it might have some of the highest numbers in the game, period. So if you're the type of person who that appeals to, then 100% play this class. And play whichever build you're interested in. But try them both because I really do think that one will mesh better with your playstyle than the other. They're very different. The last thing I'll mention is that if you are going to play Asura, do everything you can to get a Gun Lancer into one of your raids while you're testing it out. Having the Gun Lancer to taunt and shield and basically just be there as an extra support to you makes it infinitely more fun. And I understand not everyone has access to a ton of players who play a whole bunch of different classes that you can just invite to your raids at any time. So if that's the case and you want to try Asura, I've been gearing my Gun Lancer, and I'd be more than happy to let you try the class that I love so much with the added bonus of playing with a Gun Lancer. If you guys have any questions about this class, feel free to ask. I will answer as many questions as I can about this class. Like I said, I'm absolutely loving it. If there's any question I don't have an answer to, I will do my best to find an answer to that question for you. If you're new to my channel or new to any videos, I also stream on Twitch every single day, so come on over. I also teach raids every single week to new players, returning players, casual players, whoever it is who wants to learn. Come on by, bring your Breaker, bring whatever class it is that you used all of this amazing free stuff on, and I will do my best to get you some experience in these raids. If you enjoyed this video, you know what to do. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.